Hi, I'm Shauna Fisher from Fitness Outside the Fishbowl. And today what I wanted to do is just kind of give you some tips and tricks that I do when I make my banana bread. I really like to try to make things a little bit healthier for my family without necessarily everybody knowing that I'm doing that. It's kind of one of those things that I have learned to kind of do over the last several years. So, one of the things that I do, and this isn't necessarily maybe out of a health matter, but it's more out of the fact that I don't ever have buttermilk in my house. So one of the ingredients in my banana bread recipe calls for buttermilk. So what I do it calls for half a cup of buttermilk. So instead of the half a cup of buttermilk, I will replace it with, I'll put in a half a teaspoon of lemon juice, and I will add into my measuring cup, I'll put my lemon juice in there, I'll add into my measuring cup, and I'll add enough skim milk to make it to a half a cup. And so that is how I do my buttermilk. Now, when it calls for salt, typically this is what I used to always reach for, is just regular iodized table salt. I really hardly ever use this anymore. So what I have replaced it with is Himalayan salt. It is a much healthier form of salt than using your regular iodized, just plain table salt. Also, for my recipe, it calls for a half a cup of butter. Kind of gotten away. I still use butter. Butter's not horrible for you. Margarine I haven't used for years. But I do tend to steer more towards coconut oil. I get this one at Costco. It's an organic coconut oil. And so for when it calls for half a cup of butter, I will add a quarter of a cup of coconut oil and a quarter of a cup of unsweetened applesauce. And I like to do the unsweetened, it doesn't have that added sugars or anything else. It also calls for 1 1/4 cups of sugar. Now, I really try to limit this a lot. So what I have started to do is I've started to use raw honey instead. So if you have local honey, raw honey, that's awesome. I get this one at Sam's Club, and I really like it. My whole family really likes it. But when you are using honey instead of sugar, what you will need to do is you will need to decrease your temperature in your oven by 25 degrees. So if it calls for 350, you want to pull that temperature down to 325. Otherwise, it will tend to get a lot darker. And to kind of maintain the integrity of the bread, you want to make sure that you don't do that. So it also calls for 1 1/4 cups of sugar. And that's almost too much for me, especially when you have the sweetness of the bananas and everything else. So what I've done is I've decreased it down to 3/4 of a cup of raw honey. Now, when it comes to my flour, I am very notorious in my cooking where I do not typically use 100% all-purpose flour. I have a few recipes I still do it. My kids really love them that way, and that's fine. I'll go ahead and compromise that way. It's all about finding that healthy balance. I try not to overdo everything, but I want to make sure that my family is getting good quality food and still getting the health benefits from it. So instead of it calls for 2 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. What I have done is I replace it I use 1 cup of the all-purpose flour. I use 1 1/4 cups. This is my whole wheat flour that I use. And then I put in a 1/4 cup of flaxseed. I just like that variety in there. Plus it gives it a little bit more health benefits as well. So hope you enjoyed some of my little tips and tricks I do for making my banana bread a little healthier. Have a fantastic day.